The information expressed in the following podcast is intended for educational purposes only and was created by and belongs solely to Believe Limited and the Flow podcast and does not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors. Please speak to your healthcare provider before making any medical decisions.
Hi, I'm Jessica and welcome to Flow. I'm here like every month with Sarah Watson, sex therapist, and this month we're going to be talking about the future of menstrual aid with OhmBody's Amy Gaston. But first, we all want to know, how's your flow? We love to start Flow with that quick check-in to normalize the reality of menstruation by letting you know how our flows are. Where we are in our cycles, you know, how it's going. I'm follicular. I'm coming back from the bleed.
Ooh, love it. Yeah. I had some breakthrough bleeding. I think like this tiny, I know, right? So I have a IUD, Amy, and I had just like like a tinge, and I was like, what is this? But enough to notice for a couple days. So I'm not happy about that.
Are you perimenopausal, Sarah?
Of course.
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah. I feel that deeply.
Yeah.
I do.
In my heart.
I am in my luteal phase and about to leave for London. So I'm like, am I? Okay. So I will be packing my own body, which we can talk about in a little bit. Yes. But yes. My disc in my own body, I don't travel without them. Because, again, perimenopausal, sometimes I just bleed. And I'm like, what happened? I think on my last cycle, I bled for 3 days. I didn't bleed for 3 days and then bled for 3 more days. And I was like, what's happening?
That's terrible. Oh, perimenopause.
It's real. It's real, guys.
It is.
It's real and familiar. If it's familiar to some of you listeners, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned because we're going to talk about how OhmBody can help you through those symptoms right after this quick break.
This ad is brought to you by Von Vendy, Von Willebrand Factor Recombinant.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I didn't always feel empowered to speak up for myself or ask for the care and support I needed. Becoming part of a community and hearing other people's experiences helped to change my perspective. That's why my deciding factor is making my voice heard. To hear my story and access other helpful resources, drop by Von Vendy, that's VONVENDI.com/patient-stories.
And we are back on Flow to talk about OhmBody with Amy Gaston. We're going to take it back to really quick, Amy. You've created something so innovative, and we want to talk all about it. But how did you get here? I guess early education first. How did you learn about periods? What was it like for you? Was there access?
Was your story like? Let's hear about it.
Well, to be quite frank, my mother had a hysterectomy when I was 12. And I didn't start my period till I was nearly 17. So there was 5 years that nobody bled in my home. I'm the only daughter. And, all my friends were bleeding, menstruating. We didn't really talk about it, but it was this like, all the cool girls were menstruating. And I was like, I'm not menstruating. I'm confused. I was an athlete. I think I had like 12% body fat, so I was just a late bloomer. I also grew 1.5 inches when I went to college. So like, it's just I'm nearly 6 feet tall, but I was the smallest kid in my 8th grade class. Like, it's just a very different, I just was a very late bloomer. But all the other girls were menstruating. I mean, I had pubic hair. I had, I had all the things that I needed to feel like I was a woman, but I wasn't bleeding. And it was just a very interesting thing for me. And so my mom, had pads for me because, again, I grew up Southern Baptist and tampons were, sexual aids and, just things that were just a lot different. So I used pads. I was a volleyball player. So as you can imagine, a pad in my Spanx was probably not the easiest thing, but luckily I didn't bleed a lot or very often when I started. And when I started, I went to my mom and said, hey, I think I've started menstruating. And she's like, great. You know where the pads are? I'm like, great. And that was the conversation to menstruation. And to this day, I don't actually know why my mom had a hysterectomy. To be quite frank, I just know she hit menopause very early, and it was a very challenging time for their marriage because hormone replacement therapy at that time was seen as pretty taboo. It's not what it is today. And I think our mom's generations are I just feel bad for them because they lived in a world that was just hard, and so that was sort of my introduction. I went to college, and my college roommate taught me how to use a tampon through the door of my bathroom, of our shared bathroom, because she was like, "You're a college volleyball player. You can't wear a pad during season." I was like, "Yeah, totally." So I was, again, really fortunate, or unfortunate, I'm not really sure. But I didn't see a gynecologist until I was getting married. My mom, made an assumption about my virginity up until that point. And so there wasn't really a reason. And, and I've since now learned, like, oh no, the moment a girl starts to menstruate, we should probably be seeing a gynecologist. But that just wasn't what I grew up with. And so a lot of, what I learned about my body and what I thought I learned about body and menstruation was really from teammates and, hey, do you also experience this? But not really talking about it, because I still grew up in a world where it was like, hide your tampon in your sleeve. Don't let your boyfriend know that you're menstruating. I remember one time I was on vacation with a boyfriend and we were getting down and dirty and I started menstruating in that moment. And I was mortified. Luckily, he was an older guy and had sisters and seemed to be okay with it. But I was just like, what do I do in this moment, right? Like, no boy's ever known that I've menstruated. And now suddenly I'm like, I've bled all over and I don't know what to do in this moment. So that was sort of, it's sort of traumatic. And then, you get through your 20s and it's inconvenient. You're just whatever. And then my 30s, it started to regulate, with some birth control and some different things. I was only on birth control, thank God, for about 7 years. I was on Depo-Provera. And now I just recently read an article about what it's doing to brain cancer and brain tumors. And I'm like, do I have a brain tumor? Do I need to go talk to someone? What in the world? I just saw that yesterday, I think. And I'm like, oh, what is happening? Luckily, I wasn't on it for very long, just from like a bone density perspective. And by that time, I was married. My husband and I had made a decision to be child-free. And he was like, I'll just get a vasectomy. And I'm like, great, let's do that. Power. You need men in your life who are willing to look at you and be like, yeah, I got
I'll
you.
do that.
I'm like, thanks, babe. Yes. I appreciate that. Yes. So we did that. And coming up with Depo, my period started to regulate. And I started to get through my 30s. I had a pretty regular period. And, I bled moderately. I did the 2 to 3 tampons a day and, never really bled through. And so really I've been very, very fortunate. And I recognize that. And now working in the role I work in, I'm like, oh no, I'm very fortunate. Like there is some real shit that happens with women. And I just wasn't even aware. I knew friends who had heavy periods. I knew friends who were struggling with fertility. I knew friends who had endometriosis as we began to like understand what that was, and PCOS. But I'd never really understood that. And then I hit perimenopause, as we were talking about earlier. And suddenly I have brain fog I can't explain. I'm a high functioning individual. On top of this job, I own a small business. I'm a mentor. I serve on a board of a nonprofit. I have a husband. I have friends. I play tennis 3 times a week. Like, I live life. And so a day, every cycle of being like, I can't remember what your name is. And I'm looking at it and I can't remember how to pronounce it. So my brain fog is so hard. And I'm like, I can't remember the word for milk. And I don't understand why. And not really having tools to understand that. I just thought I was losing my ever-loving mind. Has been interesting. And suddenly I'm breakthrough bleeding. I wear a disc and usually that holds blood for 12 hours. And suddenly I was having to dump after 3 or 4 hours. And that's pretty significant.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And I didn't know that was a lot until I worked in this company and was like, oh, that's unusual. And that shouldn't be happening. So, I think when you ask like sort of my journey to this, it's been interesting. And honestly, like I'm a well-educated woman. I have a master's degree from a prestigious university. I read. I'm pretty well spoken. I do all the things that a well-educated woman does. But the fact that I, prior to this job, could not tell you about my body and my cycle. I couldn't even name the phases of my cycle. Like that's an issue, right? And so I'm excited to be at a company who's, on top of us having a product that we like women to try, we're really about education and about how do we ensure women don't get to be 40 and are just learning about their bodies the way that I am.
I love that.
Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer, I'm sure.
No,
wonderful answer. Wonderful answer.
Yeah, we love a long answer. Well,
took us through so much of saying what brain fog is like. I just have to say, we've never stated, I feel like in any time we've talked about it, exactly what it's like. Your examples are so precise.
Well, they're real. They're very, very real. Yeah. It's wild.
This morning, I was talking to my girlfriend while we were walking back from the school, and I was like, that thing. And I'm like making these gestures, and she's like, and then it finally hit me. I was like, the board. She's like, yeah, the board, because she's also got the brain fog too. And we're like, thank God there's two of us to figure out what that meant. Like,
truly.
Much like in your story, thank goodness there's teammates to talk about it, because at least some conversation is where we begin to understand. But then, of course, to really understand, we need to go to those who can tell us what is known, where the known unknowns are. And what OhmBody is doing is being one of those resources, it sounds like, to educate.
We hope so.
But also to activate some change. I mean, I kind of want to pretend I know nothing about OhmBody. Can you tell me what it is you do?
Yeah, sure. At OhmBody, we utilize neurostimulation of your vagus and trigeminal nerves in order to help the body manage your period in a more natural way. Just support what your body naturally does. So we have a solution that's non-hormonal, non-invasive, and doesn't use any drugs. And so it's a wearable earpiece that goes around your ear. We're going to target the auricular branches transcutaneously. And that's just a fancy way of saying we're going to target the branches around your ear, and we're going to do that on your skin, through your skin, with two wearable sticky pads. We utilize neurostimulation. It's really low grade. Neurostimulation sounds like we're shocking you. We are not. Our device goes from 0 to 4 milliamps. It's very low frequency or low voltage. You will feel uncomfortable long before it hurts you, and it shouldn't hurt you. Our safety efficacy is so high. But what we're able to do is we have two mechanisms of action, and that's just the science way of saying this is how it works. So the first thing we do is by stimulating the vagus nerve, we're actually able to send signals down to your spleen. Your spleen houses at any time between 20 and 30% of your platelets. Your body's platelets help you clot. They help you when you have an injury. They keep you from bleeding out, is what they do, internally and externally, right? So if you have an internal injury, your platelets also show up to help slow bleeding in order to keep you safe. So what we're able to do is by signaling the spleen, we're actually able to prime platelets in such a way that help them clot faster, stronger, and hold longer at the point of injury. So in this case, the shedding of your uterine wall.
Cool.
But because we're not actually activating your platelets, there's no fear of pre-clotting. We're not throwing clots. We're not making your body clot. We're just telling the platelets, hey, when it's time for you to clot and the body calls you to action, you're going to be really, really efficient at that. And so what that looked like clinically from a results perspective is we saw on average a 55% reduction in the amount of blood loss during menstruation in heavy menstrual bleeders, and a 20% reduction in the number of days those women were on their cycle. I know your face, Jessica. I'm loving it. I know. And that's an average.
The sound effects we're going to put over my face.
I know.
I'm just saying. Oh my goodness, our listeners.
It's so cool. Yes, it's so cool.
I know. You've been telling me, Sarah. I've just been holding for the surprise. I've been holding.
Yeah. So, and that's just an average. So some of our women, we use a PBAC score inside the clinical study where that measures how much blood loss by it's pictorial blood analysis. And so you kind of take a picture of your pad and compare it to another pad, and it tells you how much you bleed. And so a normal cycle, you should bleed about 150 on the PBAC score. So every time you're changing, these women, in some cases, were bleeding in the 2000s on their PBAC score. So these are women losing a tremendous amount of blood. Von Willebrand's disease patients were half of our cohort. Those women can lose up to 1 liter of blood every time they menstruate. You guys know this. And so what that means is that not only are we helping them lose less blood, but we're giving them days of their lives back. Because some of these women are bleeding 10, 12, 15 days a cycle.
Oh, yeah.
And so by being able to give them 20% of those days back, that's life-changing, truly life-changing. And then to reduce their blood loss by an average of 55%, the health implications alone of that are astronomical. And we know that the more blood you keep inside of you, the healthier you are, right? We want to limit transfusions. We want to limit introducing foreign blood into your body. And healthy women, healthy people, and the women specifically, have healthy blood and have healthy blood loss. And those who really struggle with that, heavy menstrual bleeders, whether it's diseased or idiopathic or something functional, they really struggle in a lot of ways. And so this idea that we can help keep blood inside of women during menstruation is huge for us. So that's the first side of what we do. The second side of what we do is we actually target the trigeminal and vagus nerve in sort of this patented blend that The trigeminal nerve, if you don't know, she's helps with pain management. She's kind of your pain management sensor of your body. And so what we're able to do is by signaling both of those together, we actually are able to balance the autonomic nervous system. So we're raising the parasympathetic tones. During menstruation, your body is in fight or flight. Your sympathetic tone raises. So your body is in survival. We don't really think about menstruation that way, but you're actively bleeding. Your body is going to respond to that, right? It sends resources down. And if you're heavy menstrual bleeding, we know that your body's really trying to help respond. So we say this a lot, that if you were to bleed as much as you do from your uterus as a heavy menstrual bleeder from any other part of your body, you'd be in the hospital receiving treatment. But we don't do that because it's menstruation, right? Unless you're losing so much that now you need a transfusion, you've passed out, and there's a medical reason to take you to the doctor. So your body, though, is responding because you're losing too much blood. Like you're having a period and you're bleeding. So your body's sending these resources. That's when you cramp, you have mood swings, you bloat, you don't sleep well, you're anxious, you have cravings, you have inflammation, right? So it's your body's natural response to that. So what we're able to do by balancing your autonomic nervous system, we're raising your parasympathetic tone, we're actually able to balance you down so that your body experiences menstruation in a more calm state. We're not keeping you from menstruating or ovulating, because those are both really important things for the woman's health. Even if you're not trying to get pregnant, healthy menstruation does not mean just for fertility. It's truly for the health of a woman. And so, but what we're able to do is by allowing the body to be in a more restful tone, your body's able to manage all of the resources it's sending in a way that doesn't cause stress. So what we saw clinically was a 40+% reduction in cramping, a 40+% reduction in gastric upset, a 30+% improvement in stability or mood stability, plus a decrease in anxiety, sleeplessness, and cravings. So, and then overall, so for our clinical patients, whether they had a high blood loss reduction and maybe a moderate cramping reduction, or whether they had a high cramping reduction and maybe a more moderate blood loss reduction because they were closer to baseline, what we saw across the board was an improvement in quality of life score, which is really the whole point, right? Our tagline at OhmBody is because life doesn't stop when you start. And we know that as women, we do not have time to sit around and wait for our body to catch up with us during menstruation. Once a month, we just don't. And the world has left us with very little solution at this point to mitigate that because we're not men. So
louder, right?
Yeah. So this idea that we can offer a therapy solution or a therapy option that allows women to manage the things that our body is doing every month, right? But we're doing that non-hormonally, non-invasively, without any drugs.
The vagus nerve. Nerve. It's like this important, like key to so much. And I feel like I've seen it as a solution for migraines or treatment for other sorts of symptoms. But can you share how and when or why the origin tale of when you connected the dots to that being the gateway to improved quality of life?
Yeah, that's really, it's a lot of years of lots of people all across the globe doing a lot of research. So I'm for sure not the scientist, but what I love about our clinicians and our engineers is that they're willing to say, so what's cool is our chief technical officer has like specialty in the trigeminal nerve. Our chief science officer has specialty in the vagus nerve. And our CEO is the business guy who's worked in the space with devices in this. So they together form Spark Biomedical. And they're like, oh, you do that? You do that? Oh, what if we combine that together? What does that look like? And so Spark Biomedical, actually, we have an FDA cleared device in a different use case in our another division of our company called Sparrow. And we actually have an FDA-cleared device use case for opioid dependency withdrawal. So those addicted to opioids who are withdrawing are in hyper fight or flight. So like truly their body is in stress mode. So you're not actually craving more drugs. Your body's craving the absence of the stress, right? So that's why you go back to drugs, is because your body is literally fighting itself. And so what our device does is by raising their parasympathetic tone and balancing their nervous system, it allows them to withdraw without more drugs. It allows their body to process that stress without drugs. And so that's really where the work for Spark Biomedical started. And so we're also used in VA hospitals for PTSD. We're doing some work in stress management, acute stress. So that's really where the work sort of started. And as we began to understand the work at the Feinstein Institute, which is where the work in blood clotting happens. So 20 years of research at the Feinstein Institute, all in animal work at that point. Okay. They came to our founders and said, hey, you're the only people doing wearable neurostimulation in this way. Would you like to license our findings in our tech and see if you could apply what we think works to humans? And they were like, oh yeah, sure, that's great. So they took it and really had this idea around traumatic blood loss, both in surgery and injury, and bleeding disorders, right? So they're here, but nobody had been able to actually test the tech and the application in humans because it's tricky, right? No surgeon is going to invite us into their trauma surgery and say, please apply untested tech to my patient who's dying.
Right.
Nobody's going to say that. No. Nobody's doing that. And then in the bleeding disorder community, we don't want to cause a bleeding disorder or a bleeding event, right? Because that's dangerous. Like that puts a patient at risk, right? And so they're like, how do we take this out? So they're at a hematologist conference and they're talking through what they want to do, but obviously solutions. And a female hematologist came to them and said, you know, what we should try is with women, because women bleed every month. And 3 men looked at each other and they're like, what a solution. And and I say this with their blessing, they're amazing. Like, they are phenomenal, and dads of daughters, and they want to find, they're the biggest advocates for women you'll ever meet. But in that moment, again, I say you innovate and invest in things you understand and that matter to you. Yep. They just didn't think that in their brains. And so they were like, okay, great. And she suggested von Willebrand's disease. She's a hematologist, you know, obviously von Willebrand's disease have a higher risk of heavy menstrual bleeding. So she was like, that'd be an interesting case. So they created a study that were women, half women with von Willebrand disease, and the other half were women that were idiopathic. So they're heavy menstrual bleeder with no known causes. And so they're like, okay, let's just test it, because we're not causing the bleed. The bleeding's happening naturally. It happens every month. But we can apply our tech and see if we have an effect. And the returns were tremendous. And so all the data I just gave you came from that study. And I think they looked at each other and they're like, oh, we don't have a blood reduction product. We have a menstrual wellness product. And so OhmBody was born out of that. And so that happened at the end of 2024. OhmBody was created in January of this year, 2025. We launched our product in July, and here we are.
Well, that's fast, and thank goodness. But I mean, wow.
Yeah,
diving
very
in
fast.
Head first.
Yeah, we just felt like we have a solution today.
Yeah.
That we can give to women today. So let's do that. And so they hired me in January because they really felt like they should be mansplaining periods to women on stages, which is great.
Thank God.
Smart men. And so here we are, and we're on a mission to not just have a solution, which is important to us, but also to educate women that like what they're experiencing may be common, but it's not normal. And so we want to have a conversation around what is normal menstruation? What should we be looking at? And let's destigmatize the idea that a menstrual experience should be private. And let's bring it to light. Because then and only then can we understand the problems at hand. And then and only then can we find solutions that matter. And we think we're a solution to that. But it takes some educating to get us there.
Well, and maybe that speaks to it. I was going to ask what the challenges are with having a tech company and these things, but it sounds like you're handling those challenges, and I'm sure they are there. But since this is a menstrual age, what are the challenges of educating people who don't know and inviting them in, right? Some people, it's the thing no one wants to talk about, even people who have the experience.
Yes, right.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny that you say that. I'm going to a wedding this weekend. It's a pretty small wedding, and it's a mix of different people, from international people to whatever. And we were just chatting through like, hey, are there any off topics? And the bride looked at me, she goes, we really can't talk about menstruation, Amy. And I was like,
what? Oh, excuse me? Wait,
okay.
What? Wait,
I was like, okay. And she's a dear friend. And I was like, okay. And she said, yeah, like periods probably, because it's a Catholic wedding. So there's a priest and a nun and there's a lot going on in the space. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, nobody should ask me what I do for a living then.
Yeah. What you're going to be like,
yeah. And I was like, and I'll figure out a way, and that's fine. But that's the challenge is, and it's not just the United States. I mean, there are villages around the world that send their women out to huts outside of the village walls when they're menstruating because they're unclean, right? So there's an entire millennia's worth of stigma around bleeding and hysteria, and there's just like that's whole history. You know this, right? Sending women to doctors to get vibrated. There's so much to it that's so deep. But at the end of the day, for us, is we want to start with what is healthy bleeding. and what is not. So we talk a lot about this. If you're bleeding more than 80 milliliters during any given cycle, in the totality of your cycle, you're probably a heavy menstrual bleeder. Just talk to your doctor. Right? I say that to groups of women all the time, and you should see the faces. They're like, you could see these like light bulbs going off their brain. They're like, I think I bled that last night. I'm like, I know, because we're not talking about it, right? And again, I say this a lot. Very few gynecologists are asking you, tell me how much you're bleeding in your menstrual cycle. They're saying, when do you bleed? When do you bleed, and are you bleeding? Yeah, that's it. Those are the things. But they're not saying, hey, how many tampons are you going through in a day?
Right.
Or how tired do you feel at the end of the day when you've bled all day? Like those aren't questions that are being asked. And so if a woman's not going to her gynecologist and saying, I think I'm bleeding too much, there's this disconnect of education and understanding of that there even is a problem. So that's solution number one. Like problem number one for us is like, yes, we have this innovative tech that we know could be fundamentally revolutionary to the way women experience menstrual cycles. But like half the population, if not more, don't even know there's a problem. They don't know that their heavy cramping and their painful periods aren't normal. Yes, common, but not normal. And that there's solutions out there. There can be a solution out there outside of pharmaceuticals, right? So, and over-the-counter drugs. And so for us, we just, that's the number one issue is telling women, hey, there's a problem here and this is not normal. And then the second is for us is our tech is revolutionary. We are the first of its kind to market. And when you're the first out the gate, there's a lot of naysayers.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh,
and that's okay. And we welcome skepticism because we are so confident in our science and so confident in the things that we're doing. We welcome that and we invite that into the fold because let's face it, women are faced every day with a lot of bullshit science, pseudoscience, snake oils.
All the time.
For millennia, we've been told to figure it out on our own, and we're going to pay anything to get 1% better. We'll try anything to be 1% better. And we've been burned time and time and time and time again. And so the idea is like, okay, here's OhmBody. They're making these, they're saying that this is what they can do, but like, well, what? I can't see it. I can't see it actually happening. I'm not ingesting something in a world where that's what we've known to be problem solves for medical issues is something we take. So this idea that you're going to stimulate me through my skin around my ear and you're going to have these kinds of results is a lot for people. And we understand that. I don't fault any woman for that. And we would welcome people to be skeptical. What's great about that is we have a 60-day money back guarantee, no questions asked. So if you buy our device and it does not work for you, we'll probably ask some questions like, how long did you wear it? Where did you wear it? How did you wear it? Just to make sure like there's not a user error in it. But at the end of the day, we want solutions that work for women. We also recognize it may not work for every woman, and that's okay. But we certainly think that for the vast majority of women who try our product, we've had some really incredible feedback.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, game changer.
I ran to your booth.
Yes, you did, sir.
I was like, I must hear about and so I just have to say, when we were talking about supportive men, to one of my best friends and his partner were like, Sarah, if you go in there with my 24 hours in Denver, they're like, you've got to go check out this OhmBody. And it was I about died just hearing about the vagus nerve because I talk about that in therapy so much and about regulation and then wearing the device when you put it on. It is amazing. It was not an issue in any capacity. It felt great.
Yeah, because you wore it for 10 minutes, didn't you, Sarah?
I did. Yes. It was fantastic. And then I will say props to our friend Kathy who bought it for her daughter who is an extreme bleeder. And so I'm very interested to check in with her to see how she's doing. But it is, Jess and I was so elated to be like, we must talk to Amy. Please come on our podcast. Please.
Well, I'm very honored. Yeah, you're very sweet. Yeah, and your friends were because they're neuroscientists too, right? They work in neurostimulation.
Yeah, he's a neurologist. Yeah.
So, it was really fascinating. And at BDC, so she's talking about the National Bleeding Disorders Conference. At BDC, we were sort of we're the only non-pharma company sitting in that space, commercial company. And we're just a little baby brand booth. And one of the hematologists talked about us from stage, I guess, unprompted by us. So we didn't expect that. And so suddenly we were just like flooded with people, which is like so fun, right? And getting to talk to real patients who suffer every single day.
Yes.
And much more than just heavy menstrual bleeding, but just day-to-day lives. And we're excited. We're excited to bring something again, because pharma is challenging, right? Pharma does such good stuff. But a lot of their drugs, what I learned at that conference was, for many of those individuals, those drugs are only effective for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And then the body sort of becomes intolerant to it.
Yeah.
And sort of just rejects it, and it no longer is effective. And so they're constantly, which is why I was told with pharma, they're constantly coming up with the next version, because they have to.
Right.
Because the body won't sustain receptiveness to a drug over time. And so the idea that neurostimulation might be a solve to that, it's really exciting. So, and outside of just like bleeding, heavy menstrual bleeding on our ends, but like I said, I talked earlier about 5 Leaders, our other division, and they're specifically focused on the bleeding disorder space. And so, I think heavy menstrual bleeding and women's wellness in this space is just sort of the tip of the iceberg of what we think our tech might eventually do. The other things we want to research are endometriosis, PCOS, perimenopause specifically, right? Like not just the breakthrough bleeding, but just like all of things that come. Itchy ears. I don't know if, Sarah, do your ears itch all the time? All the time. I'm like, why do my ears itch?
I'm always like, and I'm always in there. Like, what's happening?
And mine actually are my tips. The tips of my ears itch.
Inside.
And if I did not have my over-ear headphones on right now, I'd be rubbing the top of my because it's itching so bad currently.
Right, really? But so, and vertigo, Sarah, sorry, I'm connecting the dots, but you have vertigo. Is it connected to an ear, like is the eardrum connected to something going on?
I mean, the eardrum I mean, but is it all going on in regards to perimenopause? Who knows? Amy, I've been having vertigo this year. And we've been, and I've talked about it a few times on the podcast. I had it really bad last week, again, time is weird. But last week, and I'm like, okay, is this perimenopause? Because I was attributing it to when I was ovulating, but I wasn't last week. And so that's something that's kind of coming and going for me in regards to perimenopause. And it was.
Well, and from the stories we've heard, it seems like there's some connection with spinal fluid and menstrual symptoms and like what. But so research is needed. And it sounds like you've had successful research, meaning you've gotten research done, which could be part of the company's MO. But we constantly see the need for more research. How have you been finding it? How are you able to do it?
Yes.
Yeah. We that's a really great question. We're really, really fortunate. Our clinicians and engineers are Spark biomedical employees. They work for our company, inside of our company. And we certainly, lots of research is being done with our tech by other people too, but we do our own research. So the study I spoke to earlier was done by our team. And it was just recently fully published. So Frontiers in Medicine, please go check it out. It's awesome, but all the data's there. We finished a second study in heavy menstrual bleeding about a month ago, and all that data is being collected. We're starting a pivotal study next year that's funded by Welcome Leap, if you're familiar with that organization. They're based out of the UK. They just did a $50 million fund around solutions for menstrual pain and heavy bleeding. That's non-invasive and non-hormonal. And that is us. So we were one of 13 institutions to receive funding, and we're the only non-research institution on that list. So everyone else is a research institution, a university. We're the only commercially backed company on that list. And I think just speaks to the efficacy of our research and what our clinical team does, because they don't just hand checks out. Welcome Leap does not. In fact, Melinda Gates Foundation just gave them another $100 million to help join forces for some other women's health research as well. And so we're really excited about being a part of that. We've got some other things bring some smaller studies that we'll fund through some different grants and things that are coming out around female athletes and what that looks like, and how do we support, women as they're competing, and that's their profession, whether it's collegiate or professional. So there's some really interesting things for us, but research is so at the core of what we do. And our poor clinical team, I feel like once a week, I'm like, could we also research this? They're like, okay. And again, we're partnering with other researchers across the country as they come up with solutions, right? Because we can't do it all on our own, but certainly want OhmBody and Sparrow and sort of our research arm to continue to look into how does our tech affect the body, and what places in the tech in the body can we affect positive change. And so again, our pivotal study next year will be specifically for a FDA indication into heavy menstrual bleeding. So there'll be half women with von Willebrand disease, and then 40 girls ages 14 to 17. So adolescent heavy menstrual bleeding is really important to us. So again, our chief science officer's daughters are 8 and 12, and he's very like, we will find solutions. I'm like, that is so great. Again,
I love that.
You innovate and you invest in things that matter to you.
Yes.
And in this case, he's got 2 daughters, and he's like, God forbid they have heavy menstrual bleeding. We're going to find a solution. So really excited about that for us. But that work will continue. And we've got people out there currently, we're thinking about dropping our device to do a cohort of perimenopausal women who are going through sort of this like full body wellness, using wellness trackers, so there's just a lot of like real great opportunity, but research and science will always be at the core of who we are as a company.
Love that.
Because it has to.
Yes. Like, again, we don't want the snake
tears.
oil, right? Like,
yeah, the snake oil, we're done. We've got plenty of it.
We're done with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've been sensitive to the fight that is needed to include women in research studies, but because of your autonomy as an organization, as a company, it sounds like you're able to decide that women will be included in your research studies, which is phenomenal.
And it's and for your listeners to know, including women in research studies is not easy. And it's expensive because women are different, and our hormonal cycles make us really complicated to add to this. And so results can vary, right? And that's why the data takes so long to get through. It's why it takes so long to get published. It's why it takes so long to be reviewed, because every woman is a variant. Like we're just that complicated. And I'm really proud to be at a company who's like, great, women are complicated. We'll figure it out.
That's right. Because if it matters to you, it doesn't matter that it's complicated.
It's
just the next thing to do.
Right.
That's
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, then I feel like you've already opened my eyes, our listeners' ears to where we're going. But if you, in your insightful position, would predict where we could be in menstrual aid like 10 years from now, I mean, this sounds, again, game changer.
Yes, game changer.
Yeah, who knows? I truly have the unique privilege of being the storyteller of this incredible brand, and I'm the one who says, "Can we also do this?" That's the role that I play with our clinical team, and they're so open and incredible, and I'm thankful for that. But I think for us, our desire for what would be the future of menstrual care is that this tech is just a part of your journey. So at 13, when you start your period, you get a period care pack, and it includes an OhmBody. And it's a place where it's affordable, where every woman has access to it, every young girl has access to it. And it's just a part of the natural conversation. And so when I'm wearing it at school or I'm wearing it out and about, it's not this taboo label of like, oh, she must be on her period. It's like, oh, cool, she's got an OhmBody. And we just sort of go on with life. I mean, that's what our desire would be. And so, obviously we'll continue to innovate to make it smaller, more efficient, more affordable, like all the things that every company is trying to do. But I think we dream of a world where OhmBody is an everyday piece of the life of a woman. And it doesn't feel too techy. It doesn't feel science fiction-y. It's just a part of it. It's as natural and normal as a menstrual disc is.
I mean, incredible. Folks, you heard it here on Flow. Early days.
Yes.
Because there may have been some other podcasts, but early days of OhmBody's existence, the foundational years. We're so, so grateful to have all of your storytelling so that our listeners can learn how there is solutions now available.
Right. This is like such hope core right now. And Like I needed to, I was so excited to meet you and so excited to chat with you today. But the idea, like we have people doing research on women and want things to be better is something that we're not hearing a lot about. So the fact that we are able to talk about it and here it is and it works and it's fantastic and it's going to change your life. Especially right now, I think we all need some hope. We all need
a little bit of hope. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. And for us, we're thankful. We're thankful. We feel like we're hitting the space of women's health in the right time. There's never been more research. There's never been more money. It's still not enough, right? But there's never been more attention really on women's health as there is right now. And so we feel really fortunate that we feel like we're sort of coming into our being at the right time. So we're really thrilled about it.
Oh. Well, this was amazing. I think, like Jess said, we learned so much. This was amazing. Thank you.
Unbelievable. There's several sections I just want to put like the inspirational music under or like make a track. I just want to listen to it again and again. And our listeners you can re-listen to this. You can also check out our show notes, which is going to have links to all the research studies that were mentioned, links to OhmBody, of course, links to find out more about where we're going in this Hope Core future we founded today because Amy Gaston was on Flow. Thank you
so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
Oh, good. Yay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We'll catch up with you as things evolve, as things keep going. And we'll see you next month on Flow. Flow is produced by Bloodstream Media. Big shout out to our creative director, Amy Board, and our editor, Kay Vermeil. New episodes of Flow will be available the second Thursday of every month.
Hey, that's the day after I start menstruating.
And thanks to our sponsor, Takeda, for their support of Flow.